From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Thursday, May 23. 100,000 Chinese students have swollen the ranks of foreign enrolments at Australia's elite universities. TheAustralian.com.au is revealing today new figures showing overseas enrolments are at their highest ever level for this time of year. The federal government is at war with a tribunal after it released an immigration detainee who'd been convicted of domestic violence offending and now has been charged with murder. The tribunal blamed the minister, and the coalition says it demonstrates Labor has lost control of the detention system. Singapore Airlines is scrambling to recover from a devastating mid-air accident that killed one passenger and injured dozens. It was severe turbulence. So, what caused it and what can passengers do to stay safe? That's today's episode.
Welcome aboard Singapore Airlines. As the safety equipment on this aircraft may differ from that on other aircraft, please give us your attention.
We've all heard this announcement and we've all probably rolled our eyes at the spiel.
In the unlikely event of an emergency, or when you hear the command, brace, brace, assume the brace position.
Airlines try to make the safety videos fun in the hope passengers actually watch. And there's a breed of flight attendant who knows how to get everyone's attention.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the event that you have not been in an automobile since 1942, we're going to show you how to fasten these seatbelts.
If you're traveling with children or anyone that's acting like one, make sure you put your own mask first, or look to the left and then look to the right, and then choose the one with the most earning potential after college, and then work your way up.
The beautiful bikini is equipped with a water-activated light. How in the world that works, I have no idea. So if you figure it out, please do let me know. And if by chance yours does not inflate, well, grab your neighbor and hold on for dear life.
It's all very entertaining, but maybe we should have been paying attention all along. On Tuesday night, Singapore Airlines flight SK321 suddenly became seriously scary.
A 73-year-old man has died when a flight from London to Singapore experienced extreme and sudden turbulence. The Singapore Airlines flight with 56 Australians on board made an emergency landing in Bangkok. Dozens of other passengers have been taken to hospital as well, including 7 people who were critically injured.
Passengers have since spoken out about those horrifying few moments.
It was instantaneous. It really was. And horrible.
The entire thing happened within the span of less than 10 seconds. It was really, really quick.
And I ended up hitting my head on the ceiling. Some poor people who were walking around ended up doing somersaults.
I saw people from across the aisle just going completely horizontal, hitting the ceiling and landing back down in really awkward positions.
Robin Ironside is The Australian's aviation writer. Robin, this must have been a terrifying incident for the people on board.
Absolutely. To be having your breakfast served to you 2 hours from your destination, I should imagine people would have been fairly calm, and then all of a sudden absolute chaos breaks loose. Everything's flying through the air, including people, and nobody actually knew sort of why it was happening and when it would end. And it certainly looked very ugly.
The plane was over Myanmar at the time, flying from London to Singapore, and there were reports that there were thunderstorms in the area at the time. What do we know about what happened exactly and why?
We have seen the radar images, which suggest there was some thunderstorm activity. Normally, pilots would try to avoid flying close to a thunderstorm so they weren't subject to any sort of turbulence. So we don't really know what was in the pilots' minds if they were attempting to go around a thunderstorm and just clipped the outer edges of it. Speaking to pilots today, they have suggested that even the kilometres from a thunderstorm, you can still experience some of the effects in the plane, which you think this plane might have experienced those effects.
At 7:49 a.m, the Boeing 777-300ER suddenly went up about 1,400 feet and then down about 1,800 feet. For a bit of context, the World Trade Center towers in Manhattan were just over 1,300 feet high. The Sydney Harbour Bridge rises about 440 feet from the water. This is 1,400 feet up, then 1,800 feet down in a second or two. And then, 4 minutes later, the plane descended another 6,000 feet. But this was the pilots beginning their emergency controlled descent into Bangkok. Singapore Airlines is regarded as one of the safest airlines in the world. The last time it experienced a major incident was 2000, when a plane bound for Los Angeles smashed into construction equipment at a Taiwan airport after it tried to take off from the wrong runway. More than 80 people died.
They've got a really good safety record, Singapore Airlines. So it's a terrible blow for them. Their CEO made a video address. They've been doing fairly regular updates on their Facebook page as well as on other social media platforms to inform people of what's happening with that particular flight and with the people on board.
On behalf of Singapore Airlines, I would like to express my deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of the deceased. We are very sorry for the traumatic experience that everyone on board SQ321 went through.
I think they'll be looking very closely at exactly what happened and to ensure something like this never happens again.
So, what is turbulence? There are different types. One is called clear air turbulence. It's virtually invisible to pilots and happens when air is moving inside the jet streams. They're the high altitude air currents that ring the globe, up where planes travel. Then there's the kind of turbulence encountered by this Singapore Airlines flight. It's caused by moisture in the air from storm activity. Normally, is turbulence dangerous?
There's certainly a lot of different variations in turbulence. As you described, that feeling when your stomach drops. I mean, that's probably considered a fairly mild form of turbulence, whereas this is probably at the other end of the scale. A lot of flights do experience turbulence, and pilots do plan the journey around that. They do try to minimise it as much as possible, but aircraft are built to withstand a lot of force. They are built to withstand such turbulence as they experienced on this particular flight and fly through it intact.
Coming up, what we should be doing to stay safe in the air. Exciting news. Later this week, we're releasing a new cold case investigative podcast by our friend and colleague Hedley Thomas. He created The Teacher's Pet, The Night Driver and Shandy's Story. And the new podcast is the gripping mystery of a young mum who tucked her kids into bed one night and was never seen again. To be the first to know when the podcast drops, go to theaustralian.com.au and join our subscribers. We'll be back after this break. In January, a panel suddenly flew off a Boeing plane mid-flight.
Passengers in the United States have survived a terrifying mid-air emergency. An Alaska Airlines flight bound for California was forced to make an emergency landing in Oregon after the door of a brand new aircraft blew out.
This Singapore Airlines flight was a Boeing aircraft. Boeing's having a tough year, isn't it? Would there be anything to do with the make of this aircraft that has contributed to this, do you think, Robin?
No, I don't think so in this instance. I think it's probably just a bit of bad luck for Boeing. Again, I'm sure they weren't terribly thrilled to hear that it was a Boeing 777 that was involved in this incident. Boeing have thousands of aircraft that fly around the world every day, as do Airbus, and it was just probably unlucky that this particular incident involved a Boeing 777.
I remember reading an article by a pilot talking about turbulence and why it was nothing to worry about, and he compared it to being in a boat on a slightly bumpy lake. He said the plane's going to bump up and down a little bit, but you're completely safe. You're not going to fall out of the sky. Is that still right?
Well, you'd certainly like to think so. And just given the safety record of jet aircraft, it's quite incredible. Last year, in 2023, there were no fatal jet airliner incidents. It's quite extraordinary. So far in 2024, we'll have to say that there has been one fatality with this unfortunate gentleman on this particular flight. So I guess we're already doing worse than we did the previous year, but it's still incredibly safe when you think of the millions and millions of people who fly every day and the very low level of incidents. It's much safer than getting in your car and driving to work.
So how important are those safety briefings?
I think the main takeaway from that is the seatbelt. I mean, hopefully we won't have to worry about if the oxygen masks fall down. Hopefully we won't have to worry about that life jacket and be relying on that little light and whistle. I wouldn't like to test it out. But the seatbelt is something that you can control. I mean, seatbelts are an important safety feature of cars. They're just as important, if not more so, in planes. So the idea is to keep them on any time that you're sitting down. But they understand that every now and then you might have to get up, stretch your legs. But if you keep your seatbelt on when you're sitting down, that's the best protection that you have from turbulence.
Why do you think this story's taken off so much? I'm certainly reading everything I can find about it.
I think it's one of those things because we all do travel on planes at some stage, and the idea of being in that very closed environment in such a terrifying situation, I think it's something that we can all relate to a little bit and is one of our worst fears. I mean, as a bit of a nervous flyer, I really don't like turbulence at all. So the idea of having your flight turn into like a roller coaster ride is really horrifying. It's like anything that happens in aviation. It's the unusualness of it, but still, it's still familiar in a lot of ways. So I think that's what makes it resonate with a lot of people.
Robin, I feel terrible that we've made you be aviation rider when you're a nervous flyer. Has the job caused this or is it a coincidence?
It's a very mild level of anxiety that I experience, I have to say. It's just, when that turbulence strikes, though, I always do feel a bit uneasy. I don't know, probably everyone experiences a sense of unease, but yeah, I just think, maybe I'm not such a confident flyer as I like to think I am.
Robin Ironside is the Australian's aviation reporter. Come back to the front tomorrow for the big reveal. Hedley Thomas will join us to discuss his new podcast. In the meantime, subscribe to get Australia's best journalism at theaustralian.com.au.